The Witcher series undeniably has some of the most prestigious RPG games of all time. The third game in particular has received praise from all corners of the gaming community, and for good reason. It was because of the absolutely glowing reviews that I decided to pick up the game during a Steam sale, and having played about 20 hours of it, I can tell you with absolute certainty that I have no idea what's going on. The game's story is very connected to that of the others in the series, and I hate reading glossary entries, so I've decided to play both The Witcher 1 and The Witcher 2 to completion. A lot of people say that players seeking to get into the Witcher series should start with the second game, but seeing as my ultimate goal was to completely understand the story of The Witcher 3, I deemed it necessary to play the first game as well. So, let's hop to it. The Witcher 1 is a strange game, to say the least. It was made by a handful of people who had no idea how to make games when they first started, but loved playing them. It's based on novels by,
Andrzej Sapkowski.
Yeah, that guy. Thus having a strong focus on narrative. But first things first, let's talk about the gameplay. If walking back and forth between a city and a swamp for 30 hours sounds like fun, then boy is this the game for you. If there weren't so much walking, the game wouldn't even be half as long. The developers padded this game to absolute insanity. It's like every action in the game has been designed to take as long as possible.
Transport services at the best prices.
Take me to the other side.
Times are wasting. Made up your mind? Ready to go?
How many times are you going to ask me that? To the swamp.
I completely understand why people recommend you start with The Witcher 2, and it's mostly because of this very reason. I'm sure many people quit halfway through Chapter 1 just because of how long it drags itself out. There are 5 chapters in the game, plus a prologue and epilogue. The prologue acts well enough as a tutorial and a setup for the story, but Chapter 1 is more of a proper introduction to the gameplay you can expect for the majority of the experience. It consists of a single village on the outskirts of the main city. Quest objectives have almost certainly been intentionally placed on the other side of the playable area from the person who gives it to you, so you have to walk to the objective and then immediately walk back to the other side of the map just so they can give you something else to do right afterwards. If you actually manage to stick through the boredom of Chapter 1, you're rewarded with Chapter 2, which is even worse. With even more quests and an even bigger map, you can expect to spend the majority of your playtime in the second and third chapters, both of which are very similar to each other and very long. You recover HP either by drinking a potion, resting at a campfire, or eating food. Eating food is almost useless though, as it gives you a pitiful amount of health over the course of way too long a period. If you don't want to use healing potions, combat could get really chaotic as you wolf down food during battle for minimal results. Inventory management is another thing I struggle with during my playthrough. The UI is confusing at first, and most items can only be stacked up to 10, if at all. Finding a merchant to buy your items isn't easy either, because most of them don't even want the valuable stuff you're trying to sell. The game also gives you copious amounts of alcohol and food you don't actually need, but you want to keep just in case at first. The actual dialogue in this game isn't very good. Characters will often say things that don't quite match up with what the previous characters said, and it's really immersion breaking. Not to mention that the dated graphics make these characters look like robots, and the voice acting isn't doing them any favors either. The way you gather resources in this game is aggravating as well. You can't actually gather an herb or get certain item drops from enemies until you read a book about that specific subject, because apparently Geralt can't possibly retrieve the tongue of a drowned dead until he's read its Wikipedia article. Neither would he dare touch a flower that he's never heard of. No, instead you must randomly find the books or purchase them for a ludicrous price from a vendor. You can craft bombs, I think, but I wouldn't know because I never figured out how to. I know it sounds like I really don't like this game, but believe me, I do. I beat it in less than 2 weeks, even though it usually takes me months or even years to get around to beating an RPG like this. The combat is definitely something I enjoy. You can have up to 4 weapons, though only 2 of them are ever useful, being the iconic silver and steel sword duo, one used on monsters and the other for humans. Geralt has 3 fighting stances. Heavy, used for slow, armored opponents. Fast, used for quick and nimble enemies. And Group, used for fighting large groups of foes. You can chain attacks by clicking at the right time, kind of like a rhythm game of sorts. If you click while the sword is yellow, you get a stronger version of the attack. You can also learn more moves as you progress, strengthening your attack combos even more. Combat isn't just about swordplay though. You also have a few spells, or signs as they're called, to use too. You have Ard, used for stunning enemies, Yrden, used to slow them down, Ignis, used to light them on fire, Quinn, used to absorb damage, and Axii, used to control them for a short time. All of these signs can be upgraded to be overpowered, and have various uses during battle. That being said, combat at the start of the game doesn't seem very appealing. It takes a lot of getting used to, but in the end it's much better than the usual go-to clickfest of most RPGs like Baldur's Gate or Morrowind. Another thing about the gameplay that I like is the alchemy system, something that I usually hate in RPGs. Once you've researched the resources and gathered them, you brew them into a potion, all of which have unique and useful effects. Each of them have a purpose for specific situations you may find yourself in, and are downright essential to survival in later areas of the game. You have to be smart with them too. If you drink too many, you'll get toxified, which has various adverse effects on you. The ingredients you use to brew them aren't exactly plentiful either, so you have to use them only when they're absolutely necessary, as wasting them would cripple you in later areas. The boredom of walking back and forth between objectives is lessened somewhat by the fantastic music. It really adds to the overall atmosphere of the game. And speaking of atmosphere, the art design is amazing. The game still looks good even after 10 years. You can see that real love and care went into bringing the Witcher universe to life. Now for the main reason you should buy this game, the story. The Witcher has a vast cast of characters and a strong focus on choice and consequence, as well as actual role-playing in a role-playing game. Geralt has lost his memory, and so even though he's a static character in the novels, he's basically a blank slate in this one, allowing you to play as the person you think Geralt should be. And for the first time in an RPG I've played in a while, your choices actually matter. You can really feel the impact they've had on the world by the end of the game, whether good or bad. The plot itself is twisting, turning, mysterious, and always keeping you invested. It managed to maintain my interest throughout the entire game, even chapters 2 and 3, though it really picks up in chapters 4 and 5. So, in conclusion, The Witcher 1 is a role-playing game that truly deserves the title of role-playing game. The story is epic on all fronts, involving you in a unique fantasy world full of great atmosphere, well-rounded characters, and a rich story. Although it has some problems, heck, a lot of problems, it still managed to make me absolutely addicted to these games and their universe, and I can't wait to play the second one. I've been JaBoc, and may we meet again.